America, Blaze Cat Blaster here, and welcome back to Flashback Friday, where I go follow through RRC. Review, reflect, and cringe. A lot of cringe. So, last Flashback Friday, I looked at what I call the quote-unquote golden resurrection of Blaze films. And by that I mean I just looked back at some of my older films. I call it the golden resurrection because a lot of the films I reviewed that day were not that bad, honestly. Maybe I'm a better writer than I thought. No, that can't be. You know why? Because I forgot I also made the freaking movie Croaked. So we're going to be continuing this downhill spiral and see just how bad this movie's got. And I might skim a bit through them. One, because some of the movies I'm going to talk about have the same flaws, and also because, well, I don't have as much time because there's a certain maniac dog that keeps barking at me. So I'm going to try to skim through this, but also try to say why I gave it the rating. So, let's start off with Croaked. You know how much I hate this movie. But in case you couldn't figure out why, either two things. One, watch the movie yourself. Or dos, watch the short video that I made just to sum up my opinions on it.
This egg is plot. And this is the movie Croaked. This is the plot of that movie. Hi-ya! And this is what character development goes through. But wait, it's not over yet! This is character motivation! Bland characters! Terrible conflicts! I like the titular protagonist! Any questions?
The pacing is terrible. The plot is almost an absolute mess. The villain's motive to eat the gang literally makes no sense, because he has a freaking gas chamber in his kingdom, yet for some reason he decides he's going to kill them by sending them off to die in the forest for, like, no reason. And then you have, like, this weird outer plot where it turns out, oh yeah, this story is being read by off-brand Caillou. And also, like, they're kind of, like, dropped in the middle, which I get, like, they're not supposed to be the main characters, so it's okay to, like, kind of, like, take them out. But, like, same with a story like Princess Bride, like, it was, like, a story within a story, but it also, like, cut back to main characters, like, time to time, but also made sure to keep up with the actual plot. But in this one, they're just, like, completely forgotten they exist until the end. And the last piece of dialogue, before they're completely forgotten until the end of the film, is this questionable line. Set up. The reader, off-brand Caillou, is talking about how the gang comes into this weird carnival where this psycho clown is selling children and making them do suggestive dances while singing a suggestive song. And one of the kids' lines is this.
Okay, this is interesting.
If you just heard that piece of dialogue that, okay, this is interesting, like, without, like, the context of what he just heard, you would think this is innocent, but the way he says it, and what he says it to, sounds a bit, doesn't sound like he's actually, I don't know, it just kind of sounds a little questionable on what he's saying it's interesting to. Anyways, like I said, I literally decided to sideline the main character for, like, no reason. Croaked is supposed to be the main character, yet he really does absolutely nothing really noteworthy until the end where he's chased down by the monster. The conflicts are, like, easily just taken care of, like, before they even actually become a threat. Like, there's this spirit saying guarding the item that the game's trying to gain. The guy turns into this giant monster, and he just walks away when they say they want the item. You'd think there's about to be a battle to go down, but no. It's not that they drain the power of the item, because it's secretly a poison, but really, it's just kind of, like, it's really just not really a conflict then. They don't have any conflict aside from the main bad guy at the very end. That's all there is. Then you introduce these three random kids that might supposedly are supposed to become supporting characters, but no, they're just immediately forgotten. 0 out of 10. Next, let's go into Night in Shivertown. Or is it a Night in Shivertown? I don't know, it doesn't matter. This movie is pretty decent. It was the second movie that I decided to go back to doing animating for. It has this nice vintage retro feel, and so it definitely shows that I did a good job. The animation, or at least the main character's animation, is pretty smooth because I cannot take credit from backgrounds. It all seems very smooth, and the pacing is nice. The atmosphere definitely gives off an eerie feeling when it's supposed to change from a drama to horror, and it just all kind of smooths pretty nice. This should have been a solid 9 out of 10. If it weren't for the fact that a lot of the scary stuff really seems like it came there for shock value. Like, picture this. Patrick's wife dies, which is set up that she's not really doing that well at the beginning of the film, and her dying would give Patrick a motivation to leave, and that would be pretty good, pretty good use of the death. But for some reason, I decided to add it where she then shatters into millions of pieces, as if her dying wasn't a bit sad. Then you have it where she shatters into a million pieces. It just comes off more comical than scary. Oh yeah, and then who can forget that how I added a random cannibalistic character that kind of looks like Jesus in it. Monster Jesus. Bum bum bum. Coming soon to the bargain beer. New. Rated R. All I'm trying to say is that a lot of the scary stuff seems to be more so for shotgun. Heck, Xenon wasn't originally supposed to be, like, a character in it. Initially, it was going to be like there was, like, the snow creature kind of stalking the main character, but I don't know why I scrapped it. I think it was because someone else said that, like, this guy looked scarier or something. I don't know. So, anyway, it's pretty good, except a lot of the scary stuff seems more so shocking than scary. I'll rate it like a 7.5 out of 10. Now, did you catch the idea that I started to shift in genres or themes? In case you can tell, I started to shift back into horror. And that's why, folks, I'm welcoming you to the Horror Saga. Which is basically, I decided to start binge creating a bunch of short horror films. Like, out of the blue, I decided to go from making adventure fantasy films, which is weird considering that the first three, not Croaked, the first three were the ones that did pretty good, and then the 2 short horror films I made were not really that good. And you would have noticed that these ones don't have the best ratings either. And it's kind of weird that I decided to go into horror, considering I'm not great with that. Now, there's definitely some times where I did pretty good with horror, and you'll see that next episode was Insomnia, but do you know why I feel like I'm kind of surprised I decided to go with horror? Because my other attempts, you wouldn't even know that was horror. What makes you think I say that? Because, fun fact, Dawn of the Living Puppet, Tuesday the 13th, Hybrid, Paranormal, the freaking Go Girl franchise. Pennywise chases me around the house, Bigfoot strikes the backyard, and there's definitely some others that I'm trying to remember. All of those were supposed to be freaking horror movies. Yeah, horror movies. Wait, is that actually the script? Wait, it is? Oh, good lord. So let's quickly jump into the horror saga, with The Haunting of Lane Hawkins. I went for a more paranormal activity kind of style with this horror movie, and some of the practical effects aren't that bad. The eerie atmosphere, the kind of the suspense of it all, definitely gives you a certain eerie mood. But that's, sadly, the only redeeming quality for this film. Because it's really just bland to watch. There's no character to be scared for. There's no characters to get into. There's really not anything going on aside from a few ghosts doing spooky stuff randomly. And also, a lot of that draws out. Now, picture something like Paranormal Activity. To fill in the time for the audience to kind of relieve themselves and feel less scared, there's a little, there's a bit of time to ease yourself with the main characters. And then you can kind of start rooting for them and whatever they do. This one, there's no character to root for or get attached to. And then when you immediately go back to another recording, it's then like you just going, just get to the ghost part. There's not really anyone to be scared for or feel suspenseful. And also, it's kind of hard to believe that despite there being 5 different freaking recordings of ghosts doing spooky stuff, police never believe him. I mean, that's the same for most horror movies, but really? I'm rating it a 3 out of 10. Next one was Mood, but honestly, it's just pretty boring to watch. Next, let's get into Nyctophobia. Again, like I said with The Haunting of Lane Hawkins, I do a nice job with suspense and mood. But the problem is, with this one, it's just kind of, like, there are some shots that kind of draw out. Like, the title card, was it talking about what Nyctophobia is, and then me typing in literally the same dude just heard. It's just kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of feels like a weird way to draw it out by just literally restating what I've already said. And then also my reaction times to seeing the monster. And then it's just kind of weird that the protagonist is like, huh, this monster comes closer every time I turn the lights on and then turn it off. Maybe I should leave the lights on so he can't come back and then just walk away. Or, and hear me out, And I mean this, hear me out. I just keep turning it on and off and see what happens. I rate it a 6 out of 10. Here's one horror film that I would say I did a pretty decent job with, aside from Insomnia. The House of Discontent. I went for a more silent film, a gothic horror kind of route, and it definitely feels like it. What was the title cards, and then the filter, and it just really does feel kind of polished. The eerie atmosphere is definitely well put. The pacing is pretty good. The suspense and the story is really well put together. Even when you don't have those like little descriptions, if you actually look at the video description, and you can kind of see that these are all supposed to be different kinds of ghosts. And then nice attention to detail was me driving on the opposite side, since this takes place in England. And the ability, and doing a nice job telling the story without actual dialogue. Now, there are some bits of dialogue, especially at the end, but it really doesn't feel like there's that much dialogue in the entire film. I rate it an 8 out of 10. Now, lastly, let's go into Chimper and Friends. It's just okay. It's really just okay. I really can't point out on why I don't like this film. Or at least, now without, attacking my siblings for being the reasons it didn't do that. Because the acting's not that great because, well, they're little kids. They can't really act. But at the same time, like, it just feels like, even without the kids being bad at acting, it just kind of feels off. One thing to note is that the freaking main villain, or I believe it's supposed to be a main villain, is kind of sidelined, kind of like Croaked. Sorry, I have a hard time comparing another one of my movies to Croaked. And then all the other times when a character even dies, it's to that stupid pig guy in the... And then the villain doesn't really make sense, because he should just be going after Jake, because he's the one that made fun of him. But no, he decides to go after the kids as well. But one thing I will give you credit for is that this is the first time I used blood in one of my films, and I really don't really use blood that much, but I feel like I use it wisely, because it's not really, like, overly used towards, like, you have to see it, like, oh yeah, look, there's blood, oh! It's like, if you see it, you see it. Aside, the film's just kind of mid. That's all. I rate it a 5 out of 10. Well, that concludes part 2 of this. I need to get to my dog, and, well, we just covered 6 movies in, I do not know how long this video is. Praying that it's not that long. And with that said, thanks for watching, and next Flashback Friday, we'll be looking at the last 3. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!